let's continue. Don't have that much left to go, I don't think. It doesn't take long at all for Gray to find a new place for his gambling ring. Before I know it, moving day arrives. Not wanting Ivan around and happy to spend time with Gray, I offer to help him and Jed with their stuff. Sarah comes to help as well, though she lets out an exaggerated groan as she stands around the door to the basement alongside Jed and I, waiting for Gray to unlock it. Don't you wish we could skip ahead to the part where we're done moving and can go out to eat? Gray smirks as he swings open the door. Does that have anything to do with the fact that I'll be paying? Perhaps, Sarah chirps. As she starts down the stairs, Jed follows behind her. Thanks in advance, Jed says to Gray as he passes by. Oh, shut up, Gray calls out after him. You help run this business, I shouldn't even include you. Well, I for one am happy to be giving help instead of accepting it for once, I say. I take this moment to cozy up to Gray before we have to venture downstairs and rejoin our friends. Even without your bribing me with food, I'd want to do this with you. Oh, I can think of plenty of things I'd prefer you do with me instead. Gray wraps his arms loosely around my waist, hugging me to him. Maybe we should put that imagination to the test then, I shoot back. I can't help but smile as I see my teasing start to affect Gray's expression. You'd better head downstairs before I carry you upstairs instead. His voice is a low growl. And what would you do with me up there? I ask, as innocently as I can manage. I break out into giggles when he simply sighs in exasperation. Your trouble, Gray says with a shake of his head. And you love it. He can't argue with me there. The two of us join Sarah and Jed, already packing poker chips and wrapping liquor bottles up to keep them from breaking. Gray freezes as he sees Sarah handling the items directly connected to his illegal gambling ring. Sarah brushes off his obvious concern when she catches him staring. Jed told me about what you guys were actually up to down here. Can't say I'm too happy with the fact you put Valkii in danger, but I'm glad you're leaving now. Gray's focus moves to Jed, who is equally dismissive of Gray's unspoken accusation. Well, you brought Valkii down here once, so I figured it would be alright if I told Sarah. Valkii owns the building, Gray argues. But Sarah is her best friend and my girlfriend, Jed says, standing his ground. Why would she do anything to jeopardize people she cares about? I don't want to keep things from her if I don't have to. While Gray struggles to think of a response, Sarah stretches up on her toes to give Jed a kiss. Quite the collection of booze you guys racked up before drinking was banned, I point out. I note the large amount of partially full glass bottles still left to be packed away, wanting to change the subject. Guessing you guys didn't have the proper permits for these either? I tease you, you've asked her about it like twice already. That would be a safe guess, he says sheepishly, rubbing the back of his neck. You should make me a drink sometime, I say coyly. Gray and I start wrapping up the alcohol bottles and packing them away as we flirt. I'd be happy to. I've actually gotten pretty decent at it after playing bartender on poker nights sometimes. Oh really? I'll have to put you to the test then, verify your skill myself. A sly grin spreads across my face as I seal up the full box. I'm sure I'll meet your satisfaction, Valkii, whatever you ask me to do. Gray's voice is lowered to avoid attracting the attention of our friends. He gives me a wink. Confident, are we? I ask. Knowing Gray, he's never anything but. It's a part of what I find so magnetic about him. What can I say? Gray says with a shrug. I'm good with my hands. Well, I'd certainly love to see you in action, I say, giving Gray a cheeky smile. How about you come over to my place after dinner then? Your place? I repeat. It dawns on me that I've yet to visit. Yeah, that sounds fun, I say as nonchalantly as I can muster. Though I try to keep my tone even, the idea of being alone with Gray at his apartment sounds positively thrilling. Ugh, get a room, you two, Sarah says with a wink. We're like 10 feet away from you. I don't need a room. I have the whole building, I joke. I look around the basement for a pillow-like object I can lob at her in her general direction. No such luck. I settle for sticking my tongue out at her instead. Now stop eavesdropping or I'll kick you out of it. I can see my baby. He's cute. The four of us burst through the door to Sammy's, famished after packing game equipment, alcohol, and furniture into Gray's car and dropping it off at their new place. Should I order 2 burgers or one with a milkshake and large fries? Sarah wonders out loud. Milkshake and fries, Jed answers. We'll get 3 burgers and share it all. That's a great idea. You're the best, Sarah squeals. She and Jed move towards the register to place their joint order. Should we do the same? I ask, turning towards Gray. If you'd like. A hint of a smile plays across his lips, making me curious as to what he's thinking about. What's got you feeling so amused? Hanging around Sarah and Jed with you just feels very coupley. He ruffles my hair affectionately with one hand. Is that such a bad thing? I place my hands on my hips in mock outrage. I wouldn't go that far, he replies. His grin widens as I start to pout. I'm just not used to it. My previous relationships had a different kind of dynamic, and I can't say I've witnessed this much with my friends either. Jed is the first. Ivan isn't the affectionate type, I joke. I instantly regret bringing him up during a perfectly pleasant outing. Nah, his girls don't stick around long. I can't say I've even met most of them, Gray remarks honestly. Ignoring the sour taste in my mind, I find us all a table and sit while our food is ordered. Right as we start to dig into our meals, Gray clears his throat. Thanks for helping me out today, everyone, he says. Thanks for the food, Sarah replies. She gives him a thumbs up in between bites. Seems crazy that you guys won't be coming by anymore, I confess. I look pointedly at Gray and Jed as the latter reaches for some fries. Yeah, I'm sorry to leave. I'll miss coming in and getting to see Sarah occasionally, Jed says. Well, I won't miss you guys keeping me up at night, I say, half joking. I remember the loud music they sometimes played all too well. Even now, Gray doesn't look the least bit guilty. I suppose I did give you a bit of trouble in the beginning there, didn't I? Gray says. More trouble than you were worth, I tease. I poke him in the ribs with my elbow lightly, and his lips turn up into a smile. Aw, don't say that. We had some good times too, didn't we? Gray's eyes start to twinkle with mischief. I, for one, have particularly fond memories of some of the activities we partook in at the game table, he says, keeping his tone neutral. I feel my face heat up as I recall the game of strip poker Gray and I played, as well as what we did afterwards. Like what? Sarah asks, taking the bait. She seems oblivious to my growing embarrassment. Gray smirks at me before turning to speak to the others. Remember playing Dragon Den? He asks innocently. Running a table with Valkii and Jed was kind of fun. Jed snorts. I thought you hated being the Den Master. That session was a complete catastrophe. Maybe the four of us should play together sometime. I'd like to see a train work in action, Sarah says, her tone light and happy. He got up to go and use his little thing that he uses to scratch with his paws, and then he went to sleep on the pillow. There's a perfectly good a small heated blanket underneath another blanket that he loves sleeping on. Maybe it got too warm. Sure, but let's have Jed try being the Den Master next time. Then I can ride off into the sunset with Sarah's character. Oh, that's Gray speaking, not me. I was like, oh my god, Gay. Gray appears to only be half joking. Speaking of riding off, remember the bumper cars at the carnival? I ask. I remember that night fondly, at least until Gray and I almost ran into people from my past. That was so much fun, Sarah agrees. I remember some of the rides that night were too intense for Valkii, Gray says. Gives me a pat on the head, grinning as I glare at him. That's funny. I could say the same about you, I retort, promptly shutting him up. I liked going to the movies together, Jed offers. And what about that time Valkii and I followed you two around the city and into a sex shop? That was hilarious. Sarah starts to crack up just thinking about our failed reconnaissance mission, but I shake my head in shame. Oh, that was so embarrassing, I groan. As the four of us continue to reminisce, I can't help but notice how many of the group's best memories feel tainted for me. In so many of them, I was struggling to keep the truth of my past from Gray, a heavy burden that casted a cloud over what was otherwise a clear sky. Lying to him was such a mistake. I feel bolstered in my resolve to not do so again. Is this red flags again? After finishing up dinner and parting ways with Sarah and Jed, Gray takes me up to his apartment for the first time. Not too bad for a criminal, you must admit, Gray teases as we walk in. His one-bedroom apartment is in one of the pricey areas in DeCapo territory, and the higher rent is evident in the overall condition and quality of the appliances. It's certainly nicer than what I imagined, I say, impressed by how clean everything looks. And what was that? Something adjacent to a jail cell or a shack of some sort? Gray smirks. Nah, I wouldn't go quite that far. Some strange woman's basement, perhaps? I jest. Well, that arrangement has worked out for me well before. I laugh before I resume taking stock of his place. Apart from the neatness, Gray's place follows the bachelor pad stereotype closely. It's quite minimalist overall. I don't spot anything without a practical purpose. The sparse furnishings he does own are somewhat plain in design. Though the door to his bedroom and bathroom are currently shut, I would expect these themes to continue throughout the home. Gray takes a seat on his sofa, gesturing for me to do the same. What's on your mind? You got kind of quiet at dinner, he says, looking concerned. I let out a long sigh. Oh, I'm sad about the happiness we missed out on because of me trying to hide who I was in high school. Everything would have been so much better if I hadn't been so scared, so selfish. Gray takes my hand into his, rubbing his thumb across the back of my hand. I get it, Valkii. I really do. As frustrated as I got that you felt you couldn't be honest with me, I would have been tempted to do the same thing if I were you. Really? I ask. I feel doubtful his words go beyond trying to comfort me, though I'd love if there was at least some truth to them. It sounds so nice for my actions to be understood, accepted even. Relationships are hard. I don't know anyone who hasn't been ghosted their fair share. I know you didn't always have feelings for me, but I could imagine that as you developed them, you became scared of losing me. His fingers continued to stroke my hand, the comforting feeling in alignment with the warmth of his words. Scared of how I would react to our past if I found out. If I never wanted to speak to you again. It's not like you could just be rid of me. I was renting your basement. And known to blast my music on occasion, just to be petty. Gray jokes. His humor causes my frown to lift somewhat. It's true that at some point all I could think about was that I didn't want to lose you, I admit. I hate that my fear almost brought that into fruition. Give me some more credit, Gray says firmly, shaking his head. I wasn't about to walk away. I could see you were really trying then, and how you're making an effort to be better now. You really think so? I say, desperate for reassurance. Of course. Remember the other night when you told me about calling the police on me as a teenager? That was certainly something I'm sure you were tempted to keep secret. Yeah, I say slowly. I want to try to grow together in our relationship. When maintaining a lie was my main priority, it seemed like that stunted things between us so severely. Thinking about how things used to be brings on a crease between my brows. Things will be different now. Gray guides me closer, bringing my head to rest against his chest. You can just focus on yourself, Olympus, and spending time with me. You don't have to worry about my poker business affecting you, or Ivan hanging around, or the gang rivalry. We can be together. He strokes my head gently as he speaks. But you have to worry about Ivan and your gambling ring. I point out, that's not much better. That's my problem to deal with, he says with finality. His words leave me feeling shut out. I sit up, unhappy with this idea of this dynamic in our relationship moving forward. Great. I know you want me involved as little as possible, but it can feel like you're intentionally keeping things from me, which is exactly what I don't want either of us to do. I'm not comfortable being left in the dark about what's going on between you and him, I insist. Though I plead with him to open up to me, Gray grimaces, still appearing reluctant to share. I don't want you to look at me differently. There's a lot from my past I'm not proud of, particularly during the period right after my stint in juvie. That's okay, I say, reaching out to him. I don't need the details. How about just the big picture? I had trouble finding a job after juvie and getting kicked out of school. No place is really interested in hiring you if you couldn't even finish high school, he scoffs. I was doing less than savory things to get by when I met Ivan again. Nothing violent or anything like that, still white-collar fraud type stuff, but let's just say you'd approve of it much less than poker. Ivan wasn't involved with the same stuff I was, but he came to know about it. He gathered proof of what I was up to behind my back. When I tried to talk to him about leaving you alone and me quitting our poker ring, he brought it to my attention that acting out of line would be to my detriment. Gray's hands ball up into tight fists. This could land me in actual jail, Valkii. When I told you I had some personal things to deal with a few weeks ago after Ivan started threatening you in Olympus, this was what I was dealing with. I need to get leverage or some kind of advantage. I want the ability to walk away without needing to watch my back. I want to help you get back at him, I announce. Enthusiasm and outrage courses through me as I start to entertain potential avenues for payback. I hate that Ivan threatened Gray, someone who had been a good business partner to him for years. You've been close to Ivan for so long. Aren't there things you know about him that would solely get him into trouble? Perhaps Gray could strike first, land Ivan in jail before he can expose Gray. I highly doubt their poker ring is the only illegal thing Ivan's done in the past few years. Gray just shakes his head. Talking about it with you is one thing, but I don't want you directly involved in this. He stops me before I can protest. You're right, he's done some terrible things over the years. Some I knew about, others I'm only discovering now. I've yet to find hard evidence tying him to the crimes, to answer your question. Gray looks at me intensely, concern and fear written all over his face. He's not someone you should be around, Valkii. I don't like how he spoke to you at the poker game you sat in on. Promise me you'll let Jed or I know if he shows up at Olympus again. I shudder at the thought of another unexpected visit. I promise, I say readily. Though I won't hesitate to defend myself or my business after I send word. Gray frowns as I threaten physical action. I know you fared pretty well in a fight, but I hope you'd do whatever you could to not let it come to that. You know Ivan plays dirty. You could seriously be hurt. I sigh, wanting to argue, but knowing that self-preservation is probably the smartest thing I could do. Worst case, if things got physical, I have a better shot than most. I could manage to flee, at the very least. A short moment of silence befalls us. This isn't really what I imagined my first visit to your place would be like, I say finally. Oh? Gray asks. He seems to perk up instantly, his interest clearly piqued. What did you picture happening? I don't know. My fingertip traces the veins along the inside of Gray's forearm. I'm glad we have this conversation. I feel closer to you, but I guess in my head, I imagined us getting closer in other ways. I look at Gray through my lashes, inviting him to come closer. Like this? Gray cups the side of my face with his palm before leaning in to kiss me. Yeah, I say, feeling somewhat breathless as his lips leave mine. Definitely the type of thing I had in mind. His mouth crashes against mine again, his arms wrapping around me and holding my body against his. I gasp lightly as Gray lowers me back onto the couch suddenly and climbs on top of me, granting his tongue access to my own. Wrapping my legs around him as our kisses deepen, I start to moan as his hands explore my figure. Okay. I think it's not. We'll see. By the time I pull back for air, my entire body feels wholeheartedly in favor of taking things further. Maybe you could show me your bedroom, I whisper. Gray starts to agree, but then pulls back suddenly, looking as if something just occurred to him. Oh, he has, like, some fucked up BDSM stuff in there, doesn't he? As much as I'd absolutely love that, don't you have work in the morning? Yeah, why? What time is it? I reach down into my pocket, then glance at the clock on my phone. Crap. My gaze tears between Gray and my cell phone as I decide what to prioritize. We could always do this another time, Gray offers. I feel frustration well up within me, and I intentionally squeeze my legs around him tighter as he starts to disentangle from me. But it feels like it's been so long already, I protest. I don't want to postpone being with you anymore, Gray. I want this so badly. I know, Valkii, but I'm still going to make you wait a little longer. Your patience will be rewarded when we have more time to spend together. He places a kiss atop my nose, waiting for me to release my hold on him. Screw taking your time with me, I growl. I want you now. Gray chuckles, seeming to enjoy how frustrated he's made me. I don't care for it one bit. I decide when and how you'll... Nope. I want you to keep this moment in mind. Nope. Nope. The dirty words he whispers in my ear only makes my body tremble for more of his touch. Though his refusal is frustrating, the power he has over me is exciting. Agreed to disagree. Now be a good girl and unwrap your legs. I do as he says, still not happy about the night ending here in the slightest. I cross my arms after I've sat up in order to communicate this. Gray simply scoops me up off the couch, carrying me over to the door before setting me down gently. It'll be worth the wait, I guarantee it, and it has to happen after everything is settled. Because there's always a plus scene at the end of the route. I soften, realizing I've fully lost the battle and will soon be parted from him. Quickly, I wrap my arms around him in a tight hug, though I readily release him this time. I'll miss you, I say as I start to head home. I'll miss you too, Valkii. Bye. Alright. Episode 25. We're almost on to the endings. I count the, like, passionate one as endings. It's like ending, epilogue, right? Though it's only been a few days since Gray moved his poker operation elsewhere, the difference in atmosphere is palpable. As the afternoon drags on, I keep finding myself glancing towards the back door. I still expect Gray or Jed to pop by and slip into the now empty basement at any moment. On the bright side, not seeing them means not seeing Ivan either. I've yet to see or hear of him since my failed phone call with Kara and the clothing factory she represented, and for that I'm grateful. That being said, I can't help but feel unsettled by the anticlimactic end to things. Ivan hasn't been one to take no for an answer so far, but maybe it's only me he tries to walk all over. I sigh as I refold some of the clothes neatly arranged onto display tables, utterly failing to enjoy my rare reprieve from the boutique's booming collection of clientele. As far as I'm aware, Ivan stopped interfering with Olympus, coupled with the popularity boost I gained from the news article and the charity fundraiser. Business as of late has been really encouraging. Though I still need to continue exploring ways to expand my workload, so far I've been managing to handle all the new orders that have come in. As long as I can keep running my shop without interference, things will go more and more smoothly. The sound of the shop's door opening echoes throughout my boutique. Uh-oh. I turn to greet the oncoming customer when my blood runs cold. It's him. Have you missed me? Ivan says with a sly grin. His smile widens like a Cheshire cat as he takes in my horrified, stunned expression. I guess not, he muses, but I've certainly missed you. Ivan approaches me slowly and steadily, each footstep causing my heart to pound louder. I can't stop thinking about you, Valkii. He gestures to the large open space around us with his arms spread wide. Or about Olympus. In the next second, Ivan brings his outstretched hands together with a loud clap. I can't help but flinch at the sound. I came to give you a second chance to listen, to reason, after all. Ivan takes another step towards me. When I attempt to move backwards, my waist bumps into the display table. I feel in my pockets for my phone, only to realize I left it over by the cash register. You've been such a good girl all this time. You let us use your building for whatever we wanted, took Grey up to your room for negotiations. Dread pools in my stomach. Ivan comes close enough that I can smell the stench of his cologne. Even when you found out the truth, you continued to stay so compliant. Why stop now? Ivan smiles menacingly. I fight the overwhelming urge to vomit. Why won't he leave me alone? I've made it so painstakingly clear that I don't want anything to do with him, but that doesn't seem to matter to Ivan. He seemed hell-bent on seeing me surrender, but I'm not going to give him the pleasure. You have 60 seconds to leave before I call the police, I spit out, infuriated by his presence here. Funny you should mention the cops, Ivan says with a cocky grin. I was about to do the same. I give him a look of absolute befuddlement. What reason would you have to call the police on me? I ask. This is my shop. What reason would you have to call the police on me? Ivan replies, his grin widening further. This is either the weirdest bluff I have ever heard in my life, or there's a lot more he's not saying. Either way, I despise the smug look on his face. You're not wanted here, I snap back. It's beyond irritating that I need to spell out the obvious for him. Now that you no longer work in my basement, you have no reason to come by. I won't hesitate to report you for harassment and interfering with my business. My obvious annoyance only serves to amuse him further, unfortunately. I glance over to where my phone is, longing to punish him for all he's put me through. I would think twice about that if I were you, Ivan says smugly. Oh, and why is that? I ask. I've been putting a lot of thought into a sales pitch for you. I didn't go about this the right way the first time around. I don't think your pitch makes much difference, I say with a snort. I don't want to launder money for you, period. I know you don't, but I think you could be motivated to. Ivan leans towards me, resting both his hands on the table behind me. He has me boxed in. My hands curl into fists instinctively, ready to strike at a moment's notice. Though I told Grey I wouldn't use force to defend myself, it's looking more and more like I'll need to. It occurred to me that the cops might be very interested in the illegal activity Olympus has been hosting. Should I call them and let them know? Ivan raises his eyebrows as if to suggest that this is an innocent question and not an obvious threat. Hiccup. You can't be serious, I say. That would be way more likely to incriminate you than it would me. There's nothing to indicate I had any knowledge of what was happening. How about eyewitness testimony? Ivan counters. Plenty of our regular customers were there when you dropped in the other night. They heard you ask about buying a seat at the table. You turn in your own customers too. Good luck getting anyone to trust you again after you get out of jail, I scoff. Ivan pulls back, considering my words. Fair enough. Maybe I can't turn to the cops onto you without hurting me more. His wicked smile appears once more. Jansen, on the other hand, isn't so lucky. The look in his eyes makes my blood run cold. He wouldn't hesitate for a second to betray his long-term business partner. I have more than enough to see him arrested without risking anything at all, Ivan says. I wonder how you'd feel about dating a man in jail. I bristle at the thought of seeing Grey taken into police custody for a second time. What are you saying exactly? That if I don't work for you, you'll have Grey arrested? How should I respond? I don't want to be involved with money laundering, but I certainly don't want to see Grey hurt. Maybe I could agree to sell the shop on certain conditions, such as Ivan changes the name or that I keep my regular clientele. Though I highly doubt Ivan would make me a decent offer, I could save up and eventually buy a new shop somewhere. Starting over seems dreadful, but then at least I'd be away from Ivan for good. Would Grey be able to say the same, or would Ivan continue to blackmail him into staying and running the poker ring? I'm not just here to threaten you, though, Ivan continues, breaking my train of thought. I cross my arms. Really? Could have had me fooled, I say bitterly. If there's one thing I've learned about you over the past couple of weeks, it's that threats alone won't work, so let me make you an offer. My anger towards him settles down into a simmer as my curiosity takes priority. What could he have to say? If you won't give me Olympus, I'll give the cops what I have on Jansen, but if you do, I'll give you the evidence instead. My brows lift in surprise. You mean... The front door to the boutique swings open and Jed walks in, bringing our intense conversation to an abrupt halt. Hey Valkii, Grey thinks we left something in the basement. Mind if I... He stops short when he notices Ivan next to me, visibly tensing. What are you doing here? The boutique is off limits now. I know Grey made that clear. Ivan shrugs his shoulders, forcing a friendly smile into his face. I heard you guys forgot something here. Thought I would step in and sort things out for you. I was in the area. My eyes narrow in response to Ivan's attempt to talk his way out of the situation. Jed crosses his arms over his chest, looking unconvinced. I make eye contact with him, trying to convey just how uncomfortable I am with Ivan being here. What did we forget? Jed asks, still tense. Ivan appears baffled by the question. What? You said you heard that Grey and I left something behind here. What was it we were looking for? Ivan scratches the back of his head, looking sheepish. I guess I don't remember that part. Just thought I'd have a look around, see if I saw anything. Uh-huh, sure. Come on, man. It's time to go. Don't let me catch you here again. Jed looks more cross than I've ever seen as he stands firm against Ivan's attempts to smooth things over. Ivan looks less than pleased. He moves to face Jed head-on, but still attempts to keep the uneasy peace between them. Alright, fine, you caught me. I need to talk to Valkii alone. Can you give us a few minutes? Then I'll leave, I swear. Jed simply shakes his head, causing me to sigh in relief. I don't want to be subjected to Ivan's mind games or physical presence anymore. No, you leave now. Ivan straightens to his full height, though his stature is still shorter than Jed's. Just give me a couple of minutes, that's all I'm asking. Despite Ivan's attempt at bargaining, Jed seems to be an immovable force, and my answer is still no. The look in Jed's eyes is fierce as he stares down at Ivan. My question to you is, do you want to walk out of here willingly, or do you want me to make you? Ivan moves towards the exit after a heavy moment of silence, causing me to sigh in relief at the thought of this encounter ending peacefully. However, oh my god. In the next moment, he suddenly turns back, hitting Jed's nose with a sharp right hook. Ah, Jed cries. One hand moves to hold his bleeding nose as he stares at Ivan in disbelief. What the hell was that? I told you to leave us alone. You should have listened, Ivan says darkly. He pulls back his fist, intending to hit Jed again. Before it can connect, Jed lands his own hit to Ivan's gut, causing him to double over in pain. As Ivan curses from the blow, Jed moves with his hands raised passively in the air. You alright? I don't want to hurt you, but... Ivan kicks at Jed as he gets close, connecting with one of his shins. As Jed instinctively lifts his hurt leg, Ivan aims at the other. Jed shoves Ivan back to avoid the blow, pushing his opponent into a tall display case. Ivan crashes against the wooden structure with a sickening thud, his body shattering the large glass panels. He slides to the floor, surrounded by sharp shards of fractured glass and various accessories. This isn't over. Ivan pulls his body up before staggering towards the boutique's front door, wiping blood from his split lip as he moves. And you, he says, pointing at me, consider my offer off the table. Ivan retreats before either of us can respond. Though I'm glad to see him gone, anxiety courses through me when I contemplate what his last words might have meant. I doubt he'd let me off the hook so easily. If anything, I fear he's going to prepare something even worse than his cruel ultimatum. What did he mean by that? What offer? Jed asks. His clear concern for me, even while he's hurting, racks me with guilt. Never mind that. As I brush off his questions, I dip into the other room momentarily to grab a first aid kit. You have bigger things to worry about now, my friend. My tone is light as I look over the wounds Jed sustained. To my relief, nothing seems serious. And her name is Sarah. I'm sure she'll be worried about you, though it doesn't even look like your nose has been broken. Just bloody, but that should stop soon. Jed grimaces at the thought of receiving a lecture from Sarah. I certainly sympathize, having been on the receiving end of those before. Still, it's nice to have someone who cares in bad moments like these. I guess I should call her and tell her what happened, huh? Jed looks sheepishly at me. I give him a nod. I should do the same with Gray. He'll want to know what happened. I attempt to smile at my brave friend before me. He and I will figure out what to do about Ivan. Just focus on recovering now. Alright, I will. Would you mind if I check the basement before I leave to make sure Gray and I didn't miss anything? It seems so unimportant now, but... Oh, right. Yeah, sure. That's no problem. Just let me unlock it for you. I open up the basement door for Jed and he immediately starts down the stairs. Thank you, by the way, I call out. I don't know what would have happened if you didn't show up when you did. I did not want to face him alone. I'm glad you didn't have to. Glad I could intervene. Jed gives me a nod before finishing his descent and disappearing from sight. While he's occupied, I close up the shop and grab my phone to call Gray. Despite the surety I stated earlier, I'm not confident Gray and I can fix this mess. One can only hope. I pace back and forth and the phone dials, eager for the call to connect. The moment it does, Gray's warm, deep voice fills my ear. Hey, Valkii, what's up? It's Ivan, I blurt. He came back to Olympus today. He was making demands about the money laundering again. I hear multiple swears from the other side of the call. Damn it, I'm so sorry. I thought for sure I took care of things when he and I last spoke. Clearly I was wrong. It's alright, Gray. I don't blame you in the slightest. Jed came by in the nick of time, but he and Ivan got into a fight. Fuck, is Jed alright? Is it serious? He's totally fine, I rushed to add. Just a bloody nose and a sore shin. Ivan fared worse, if I had to guess. But Gray, Ivan seemed really, really pissed when he left. He rescinded the deal he tried to force me to take, and I'm worried that's a sign he's going to do something much worse. I agree, that doesn't sound good. I'll be there as soon as I can. My voice verges on frantic as my fear increases. Do you really think he'll come back tonight? Do you think I'm in danger, or that Olympus is? It takes Gray a moment to answer. I think we should prepare for the worst. We don't know when he'll strike, but it's likely he will at some point. Better I stay with you while we make plans to better protect you. All right, I say shakily. I'll see you soon then. I'll be there as soon as I can, Valkii. Try to hold on until then. Soon after we hang up, I hear heavy footsteps coming up from the basement. Jed shakes his head in disappointment when he sees me, returning from his trek empty-handed. Gray's on his way over now if you want to take off, I say. I've locked up the shop. I'll stick around until he shows, if that's alright with you. Mind if I step into the back room to call Sarah? Not at all, I smile. In the time it takes Gray to arrive, I collect some of my most treasured designs and sketches together and pack them up into a box. Jed returns to the boutique's main room at some point, grimacing in the aftermath of his phone call. He leaves me to my task for the most part, though he does offer his assistance when it's time to move the completed box of papers and sketchbooks. Gray knocks on the door just as Jed places the box down in the corner of the back room, safely out of the way. I rush over to the door to let Gray in. He immediately closes the distance between us, pulling me into a tight hug. Jed makes his way to the door quietly, not wanting to disturb us. Gray grasps Jed's shoulder warmly before he leaves, trying to convey his appreciation without having to disentangle from me. I owe you one, man. Thank you. You would have done the same for me, Jed says. He shoves his hands into his pockets, giving Gray a curt nod before he slips out the door. As grateful as I am to Jed, it's so wonderful having Gray here to stay with me. I'm so glad you're here, I confess. I'm happy to be with you, Valkii. I just hope I can keep you safe. I feel much safer already, I say with a smile. Should we head upstairs? I could order something to eat if you haven't had dinner. The two of us head up to my place and settle in for the night, eventually moving to the living room to sit and talk things through. What do you think I should do now? I ask. I'm curious to hear Gray's take on what I should do about Ivan. I'm not sure there's much you can do at this point besides to prepare for the worst, Gray says frankly. None of us have been able to change Ivan's mind so far, and we hardly have any negotiation tools at our disposal. So he's going to come after me and my business, and there's little I can do to stop it? This is terrible, I say, feeling distraught. Gray sighs as he sees my distress, looking at me sympathetically. At this point, we're assuming he's intending on committing a crime. Either we convince him not to, or we can take precautions. Should we go after him first? I ask. Though I'm not sure exactly what I have in mind, I do know that I don't want to just stay here like a sitting duck. Gray's brow furrows. What do you mean? I don't know, just... I attempt to illustrate something with hand gestures, but fail miserably. I want to do something. I don't want to have to wait until disaster strikes to react. Can't we hit him where he lives? Truth be told, I was actually planning on breaking into his apartment and stealing the evidence he has on me tonight. But after what happened to you, well, it just didn't seem as important. That's something, I say, sitting to attention. Can we still salvage that plan? Maybe carry it out tomorrow? Maybe, Gray says, shrugging. But I'm not sure it really matters now. Sure, it takes away an advantage he has, but I'm much more worried that his focus will be on you now. Oh, I reply. The disappointment displayed across my face causes Gray to frown. I'm sorry, Valkii. I just think I'd be more used to you here, helping to fend off anything Ivan throws your way. You're probably right, I say begrudgingly. Maybe we shouldn't talk about this anymore tonight. We might feel a lot more calm and centered after a good night's sleep, I suggest. Maybe you could come to bed with me. Gray raises an eyebrow. I can't quite tell what he's thinking. I shrug off any hesitancy to be vulnerable and try to focus on being honest with what I want. This is a man I've been intimate with, one who's seen me at my worst. I don't have to be embarrassed about wanting him near. I just think it could be comforting having you close by. I'd like to be held by you, if that's all right. Gray pulls me into his arms before whispering in my ear. Of course it's all right, Valkii. I'd like to stay as close to you as I can. I want to protect you. As his warm breath brushes against my ear, I feel my body start to flush with a heat of its own. As if he can somehow sense it, Gray pulls back to look at me with a mischievous look in his eyes. But try to resist me when we're in bed together, okay, Valkii? I don't want to waste all this anticipation I've been building up in you on a night when we're both worried and stressed out. I roll my eyes at the smirk he shoots me. I think I'll manage, but I appreciate the concern, I joke. I jump off the couch, heading into the bathroom first to brush my teeth and prepare for bed. Gray calls out to me as I leave the room. Really? Because I seem to recall having to drag you off of me. You wanted me so badly, Gray teases. I hear him snicker as I walk away, instilling a desire in me to tease him right back. When it's Gray's turn to use the bathroom, I head into my room, slip out of my clothes, and put on the sexiest sleepwear in my possession. We'll see who will be more irresistible tonight. I await Gray's arrival, sitting up in bed, the blankets covering my negligee only from the waist down as I scroll through my phone aimlessly. When Gray enters, he gives me the exact sort of reaction I was hoping for. I look up to find him utterly speechless, frozen in the doorway. It's been a long time since he's seen me even close to undressed, and it shows in the way his eyes take in my barely covered body. He definitely wants me. Feeling a bit smug, I move to turn off the lights. Well, good night, I say cheerfully. I leave my phone on my bedside table and turn onto my side, facing away from the side where Gray will sleep. Gray makes his way to the other side of the bed with the light of his phone to guide him. I hear the soft thud of his clothes hitting the floor before he climbs in next to me. His arms wrap around my waist, pulling me towards him until my back is pressed against his chest. This is a dangerous game you're playing, Gray whispers, his voice heavy. His hand roams its way up my bare thigh, stopping when he reaches the lace of my nightgown. Try to resist me when we're in bed together, okay? I quote. I relish the feeling of throwing his earlier taunt back in his face. That is, until his hand slips underneath the cloth and his touch causes me to gasp in pleasure. Well, the second he hears my moan, Gray draws his hand back. Well, good night. These two are so stupid. The cheerfulness in his tone mimics mine from just a few minutes ago. Oops, I didn't read that one. I was too busy with looking at my cat. Disgruntled and outplayed, I can't help but pout. My resentment quickly melts away when Gray traces the length of my arm gently with the tips of his fingers as his warm body rests on top against mine. Feeling soothed and calmed by his touch, I soon forget the troubles of the day and fall into a peaceful sleep. But then a loud noise wakes us from our sleep. Oh, we'll find out next time. Alright, I'll see you in the next one.